Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about the world of AEW. Of course, this is a massive week for AEW. I know a lot of people are talking about SummerSlam at the weekend on Saturday, but of course, the day before SummerSlam, Friday night, you have the second ever episode of AEW Rampage, what is being billed as AEW Rampage, the first dance. Of course, that's taking place from the United Center in Chicago, and of course, it's reportedly set to feature CM Punk's All Elite Wrestling debut. So it's a big week for AEW this week. We are going to talk about Punk today. He's been teasing his debut later on this week. But we are going to talk about, first of all, the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega and the match he had this past weekend at TripleMania XXIX. Now, he had the match, of course, against Andrade El Idolo on Saturday night. And a lot of people, myself included, going into that match thought it was pretty much a slam dunk. That despite being an AEW contracted talent, considering his links to Mexico and being a Mexican himself, it was pretty much a slam dunk that Andrade El Idolo would win the AAA Mega Championship from Kenny Omega at TripleMania this past weekend. And reportedly, that was the case. Now, Andrade El Idolo was originally scheduled to win the AAA Mega Championship from Kenny Omega at TripleMania this past weekend, but it was AEW who asked AAA to hold off on the title change. Now, this is according to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer radio show. As I've mentioned several times when we talk about AEW here on the channel, if it's coming from Dave Meltzer and he's talking about AEW, 99% of the time it's accurate because that means he's spoken himself to Tony Khan. Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer are very close. Tony Khan reads, he openly admits that he grew up reading the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Dave Meltzer likes to tell everyone that's what Tony Khan used to do. So if Dave Meltzer's getting information or news from AEW, chances are he's gotten it from the head man himself, Tony Khan. So if he's saying that AEW asked AAA to hold off on the title change, that means Tony Khan told him that. So I would probably say that's accurate. Now, Meltzer noted that AEW has control over the finishes of Omega's matches in other promotions. Of course, Omega's competing in the likes of AAA, Impact, and AEW right now. Now, Kenny Omega is set to defend the AEW World Championship against Christian Cage at All Out on September 5th. But Kenny Omega lost the Impact World Championship to Cage this past Friday on the debut edition of Rampage on TNT. As of recording right now, it's unknown when he's set to defend the AAA Mega Championship again or next. But that kind of does make sense to me. I know some people were thinking that the storyline was going to be Kenny Omega loses on Friday on Rampage to Christian Cage, drops the Impact World Championship. He then loses on Saturday at TripleMania, the AAA Mega Championship to Andrade. Then by the time we get to Sunday, September 5th at All Out, the feeling is that he's desperate. The belt collector is desperate to hold on to at least one championship, arguably the most valuable and the most prestigious championship of them all, the AEW World Championship. That's kind of the storyline there. In reality, that doesn't look like the case. It looks like that Maybe this Impact World Championship change was relatively new in terms of the planning. Other reports have essentially stated that AAA were told about AEW's request probably at some point in early July, maybe even earlier about that. We don't know, but it's kind of the general feeling is that maybe the absence of Hangman Page, who of course is off AEW television right now, he's on hiatus because he's going to be on paternity leave as his partner gives birth to their first child, so he's off of television. Hangman Page's absence plus the influx of new talent, when we're talking about the likes of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, the former WWE star Daniel Bryan, coming into AEW, reportedly that maybe has changed some things in terms of the planning of Kenny Omega's AEW World Championship reign. And I guess the overall feeling was that because Omega lost on the Friday, they didn't want him to lose on the Saturday because they didn't want to see him be weak. He still is their world champion after all. And the plan isn't for him to gradually lose all those championships and then drop the AEW World Championship at All Out. Christian Cage isn't winning the AEW World Championship at All Out. Everyone knows that. So that would lead some people to question, well, why did Christian Cage win the Impact World Championship on Friday on Rampage then? And I think given this latest story about AEW essentially requesting to AAA, can we not have Omega lose against Andrade on Saturday? The general feeling that I have is what I've said a couple of times on these Impact News videos we've done here on the channel, that the reason they had Christian Cage win that Impact World Championship on Friday was purely because they want to give the fans a reason to believe that Christian Cage can actually win the match on September 5th. That's it. Because going into that match at All Out, nobody for a second buys that Christian Cage is going to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. I still don't think we do now. I still don't think anyone truly, realistically believes that Christian Cage is going to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. I myself still don't believe that to be the case. I think the person to defeat Omega for the AEW World Championship will be Hangman Page whenever he's back. Maybe the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite in September, Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. So, given the fact that nobody expects Christian Cage to win, they've still got to sell that main event. They've still got to give people a reason to purchase the pay-per-view and at least have an element of doubt. You put that element of doubt in people's minds by having Christian Cage defeat Kenny Omega on Rampage. Plus, he wins the Impact World Championship. It keeps Impact happy because Christian Cage is going to do some Impact appearances now. And overall, it just gives the people a perception that Cage can actually beat Kenny Omega. I think they could even change that World Championship match at All Out to a winner-take-all title versus title match. I still think Kenny Omega will be the Impact World Champion again at some point. So I think that's the reason why. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Andrade. Will Andrade still be the one to take the AAA Mega Championship off of Kenny Omega? He's contracted to AEW. He can do appearances outside of AEW, like several talents can, but maybe because he's going to be busy outside of, in AEW rather, that maybe he won't be the choice to be the AAA Mega Champion going forward. It's certainly interesting. I don't think it's surprising that AEW made that request, and it certainly gives you the impression that maybe not right now, in terms of plans changing as of this week or anything like that, but certainly around a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, the original destination of what they were going to All Out changed. Initially, I think the plan probably was that Omega would drop the championship to Hangman Page. For whatever reason, that's changed because of Page's absence and the incoming additions of CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. So obviously, it's caused them to change course a little bit here, AEW, and that's what we're seeing with TripleMania at the weekend. Now, Andrade was criticized by some for his match against Kenny Omega on Saturday night at TripleMania in Mexico City. Now, several fans on Twitter pointed out that Andrade promised to have a, quote, 5-star match with Omega in a pre-match interview. However, the match underwhelmed in the eyes of Dave Meltzer and certain fans, criticism that Andrade himself felt unfair. Meltzer said on the Wrestling Observer radio show, quote, "It felt like Kenny Omega was working to have a really good match, but Andrade was only working to have a good match." Andrade addressed Meltzer's criticism with the following tweet: "That man hates me and will never speak well of me or my fiancée, but all the fans love him for the garbage that comes out of his mouth. I'm a pro and I showed it yesterday. La Sombra is back to show everyone I'm better than waiting for a stupid star rating, brackets DM Dave Meltzer." So Andrade obviously has beef with Meltzer that goes back to earlier this year when Meltzer was talking about Andrade's release and he was talking about Charlotte Flair. I think he said some less than flattering things about Charlotte Flair in the past concerning her appearance, the pregnancy stuff, etc. And I didn't agree with Meltzer's comments at the time. I thought they were low. And this is the problem, I think, with Meltzer. And look, Meltzer, over the course of the last 7 days or so, has been engaged in this war of words of Ryan Satin on social media, and it was bizarre to watch. Let's be honest here. It was bizarre to watch. It was about Meltzer bringing up a tweet about Kenny Omega that was over a year old. Then that spiraled into allegations that Dave Meltzer didn't believe that Roman Reigns' leukemia was real or the treatment was real. It was just very, very bizarre. Two guys that, look, they're very good at what they do, but certainly on certain occasions on social media, they don't exactly come across the best, and their opinions on pro wrestling are divisive to say the least. I mean, Dave Meltzer said a lot of things about Bad Bunny earlier this year, saying that nobody knew him and he wouldn't be a good wrestler, he was a bad athlete, all this kind of stuff. And how wrong was he proven then? And I don't have an issue with him saying that. That's his opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's the same here on the channel. If Dave Meltzer didn't think the match was great on Saturday, that's up to him. I didn't think the match was as good as maybe I thought it was going to be. I think that's partially due to Andrade bulking up a little bit. But at the end of the day, a 5-star match, what is a 5-star match? It's someone's perception. I'm sure there were people out there that absolutely love that match and they'll call it 5-star. I'm sure there are people out there that thought it was 1-star and they hate it. This idea of a 5-star match doesn't exist. It's perception, it's opinion, it's genres of music, it's taste, it's flavors of ice cream. Some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate, some people like strawberry, some people hate all 3 flavors and they like something niche. That's at the end of the day what taste is. When it comes to Andrade and Dave Meltzer, look, Obviously, Andrade has his issue with Meltzer. I think it's probably slightly justified, to be honest with you. And Meltzer doesn't take criticism well, and he probably has issues with Andrade too. And if the last 7 days has proven anything, that both of these people aren't going to back off, because that's the egos on both of them. So that's the situation when it comes to Andrade and Dave Meltzer. Kenny Omega, this is a great interview. Kenny Omega did an interview after his match against Andrade and spoke about the appearance of Ric Flair. Now, of course, Ric Flair surprised fans and appeared at the event to be in the corner of his future son-in-law, Andrade. Flair even got involved physically at one point, chopping Kenny Omega a couple of times and putting Conan, who of course was in the corner of Kenny Omega, in the figure four leg lock. Now, afterwards, Andrade was written to by Kenny Omega and Flair, making it clear that he didn't appreciate their stunt at the event. Kenny Omega tweeted, quotes, "Hey Andrade, I'll admit it, you're tough and you came close, but that stunt with Ric Flair, not in 2021 and not in my ring, pal. You made it personal." Now, backstage after the match, Kenny Omega said it would have made for an even better moment if he punched Ric Flair in the face and gave him a V-trigger. This is what he said, quote, "You know what would have made for an even better moment? If Ric Flair came into that ring and I popped him one in the face, that would have been an even better moment. I think the fans would have been so happy. They would have been cheering. And it would have been like, Kenny, Kenny, Kenny. And Ric Flair would have been like, ah. And I would have been like, I'm sorry, Rick, I love you. And then a V-trigger to the face." Kenny Omega, look, I know some people don't like his promos. The Kenny Omega heel promo is so much better than the Kenny Omega babyface promo we were getting in the early runs of AEW. And it's still not lost on me at this point that it's 2021, and this past weekend in a AAA ring in Mexico City, we saw Ric Flair chop and punch the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega in the face when he was defending a AAA Championship against Andrade, who had Conan in his corner. What a crazy time. 2021 is such a wild year in pro wrestling, and it just continues. That is not lost on me how crazy that is. And I mentioned it in today's WWE news video. Flair's going to show up in AEW, I think, very soon. Wrestling Inc.'s reporting that there is no non-compete clause for Ric Flair, so it's a matter of time before he shows up in AEW, and maybe we have the second round of this confrontation between the Nature Boy, two-time Hall of Famer Ric Flair, and the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. Keep your eyes peeled on that one. Now, I said at the beginning of the video it was a big week for AEW, and of course that big week is largely centered around the incoming CM Punk. Now, whilst of course it hasn't been confirmed as of right now that Punk is indeed All Elite, he is. He is, though. The Rampage show this week is rumoured to debut CM Punk. Our speculation is rife with over the former WWE superstar possibly becoming a staple of Tony Khan's roster. Now, Darby Allin seemed to call out Punk this past Friday by asking him to go up against the best in the world, but Punk didn't mince words in a recent interview, which he claimed to be focused on his acting career. He also referenced that maybe the best in the world was referencing to Daniel Bryan. He said, "When I think of the best in the world, I think of Bryan." But CM Punk has continued to tease that he's heading to AEW, because he is. Now, Punk appeared to nod that Darby Allin, a feud with Darby Allin was incoming. He posted an Instagram story on Saturday with images. The image that he posted references a Ring of Honor show that he was featured in. Now, of course, that's nothing on its own, but the former WWE champion's caption ended with the words, "Nothing's over till you're underground." Now, you would think, what does that have to do? Well, that phrase, "nothing's over till you're underground," is actually tattooed on the chest of Darby Allin. He knows exactly what he's doing there, CM Punk. He's trolling. He's a very good troll, and he is going to be there Friday at the United Center in Chicago. Even Tony Khan himself is openly kind of admitting this at this point without actually mentioning CM Punk's name. He said, quote, "Of course, I think everyone knows what to expect on the second episode of Rampage, which is titled The First Dance, and I expect the anticipation will continue to build." That's all the president of AEW said, but it wasn't the only tease that CM Punk dropped, because CM Punk this past weekend was doing his regular commentary gig at the CFFC MMA event. Now, CM Punk did a little All Elite joke whilst he was on commentary as two fighters battled on the ground. CM Punk's commentary partner, John Morgan, set Punk up. This is what Morgan had to say, quote, "Like in the first round, Hoffman is just returning to his wrestling. You know what I'm saying, Punk? Returning to his wrestling." Punk responded quickly, "Yeah, he's looking All Elite right now." Not bad, right? Not bad. I mean, like I said, he is coming back. He is going to be debuting Friday on Rampage. There's no I know some people are saying it's not going to happen or they still don't believe it. It's happening. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, that probably AEW actually leaked that information out to sell out the United Center and get the anticipation for the Rampage show. So I, like everyone else, will be going live after Rampage on Friday because Punk is going to be there. And it's a very exciting time to be a pro wrestling fan and an AEW fan. Speaking of Rampage, and we'll end on this, of course, Rampage features a four-man commentary booth of Excalibur, Chris Jericho, Taz, and Mark Henry, which has been divisive to say the least since the premiere episode of Rampage on Friday. Now, Rampage debuted on Friday, featuring a four-man commentary booth of Excalibur, Taz, Chris Jericho, and Mark Henry. For Henry, this was his personal announcing debut for AEW. He also did a backstage interview with Christian after his big Impact World Championship victory. He also did a pre-match interview with the AEW World's Women's Champion, Britt Baker, and her challenger that evening, Red Velvet. But the commentary for the four-man booth of the show didn't get the best reaction on social media, to say the least. One name that was pointed out to be not doing so great on the show was Chris Jericho. One individual on Twitter was apparently not a fan of Jericho's commentary, saying he was shouting his way through the show. Jericho retweeted the Twitter user and responded, quote, "Suck it," brackets, said in a whisper. Of course, Jericho is getting ready to face MJF on this Wednesday's Dynamite in Houston, Texas. Of course, it's the final chapter of the 5 labors of Jericho. MJF has also announced Jericho can't use the Judas effect during the match, and he can't come to the ring with his Judas theme, of course, by Fozzy. I didn't mind too much Jericho's commentary. I think he was screaming a bit too much. I will agree with you there. I think he was trying to be too fast. A couple of times he was and then got it out. That four-man booth's just too much. The show did improve in terms of the commentary. I thought the show was very good overall, but the show commentary improved when Mark Henry went to the back and he was doing the interviews. I think that's going to be the case most of the weeks. That four-man booth's too much. Personally, I'd rather it just be Excalibur and Taz, to be honest with you, because they are very good on AEW Dark and they have chemistry, and I prefer a two-person booth anyway. Jericho might be wrestling some weeks on Rampage as well, so I think that's something to factor in too, but I would agree with a lot of people that just the commentary didn't work. It was probably my biggest takeaway from the show. Love the hour format, love the pacing, love the matches, love the crowd. Wasn't a massive fan of the intro and all that, it must be said, and I would have preferred to have a different set, but look, that is what that is. For me, it was just a case of that four-man booth is just way, way too much. It feels like AEW have promised 4 announcers a job, and then they realise, oh, now we have to actually put them into effect, and we've actually got to put them on the show. So that was kind of the situation when it came to commentary, but I think Tony Khan and AEW, historically, since the company was founded in 2019, when there have been issues like this, they're not like WWE in terms of being stubborn. They'll address them relatively quickly, you would hope. So maybe next week, Mark Henry's just on the interviewing duties and it's just Jericho, Excalibur, and Taz. I think that will improve it. And it's going to be a case of Tony Khan maybe saying to Jericho, look, tone it down. Be a commentator. Be a Bobby Heenan. You've got a character. You've got the persona. And you've got the credibility. You don't need to scream and shout. You don't need to do that. I know you're excited and I know it's great energy, but chill. When he did it with Tony Schiavone during the early stages of the pandemic last year, he was very good because he wasn't screaming and shouting. He was putting over the talent. And that's what he needs to do when he goes on Rampage going forward. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.